Hello, hello. This is going to be a great one. This is a dear friend from, geez, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And I had the pleasure of playing racquetball with him every year he came here to Las Vegas. I think DJ at the time we were both trained by one of the pioneers, the late Dr. Tad James, Adriana James. At this time, we were both NLP trainers, and I remember, and I missed it so much. We used to play racquetball, and
a
if you
lot.
a lot, and if you recall, I was pretty good at that almost 20 years ago, and I would beat you, and we had so much fun,
Kick my butt. Yeah, yeah.
and all of a sudden,
Afraid to say.
I realized that you were doing some NLP, you were doing some matching and marrying, and you were copying and
Modeling.
being in places where you wasn't on the racquetball court. It was just amazing. And yeah, in the end, you finally beat me. You really humbled me, and yeah, you never came back, so we could have that rematch. And
That
I
rematch.
I would like that rematch again. Anyways, and now you're a master trainer of hypnosis, a master trainer of NLP. I'm really excited to introduce Dr. DJ Jackson out in Australia. Welcome. How are you, DJ? And thank you for being here.
It's a privilege. I wish I could have been with the conferences sooner, but obviously a busy schedule has kept me from it. But it's great to be here now. It's great to catch up with you.
So tell us a little about you. What are you doing, and what's happening on that side of the world?
Wow. Right now in the middle of winter, it's our sort of quiet season. But generally speaking, I do keynote presentations with corporations. I train. I'm probably one of the busiest trainers in Australia. I do about 150 odd days a year in training. I see clients. I work with corporate companies to raise their bottom line. So there's a lot of stuff that I do sort of outside of that. But everything I do has a foundation of hypnosis, obviously, NLP. Timeline therapy has a big place in my life personally, as well as in my businesses. So it's the business has grown dramatically in the last 20 years, and I have to accredit it's not just me. Jojo plays a big part in that as well. We have different mindsets and that really work well together. So we've grown the business to quite not just a profitable, but one that has a real impact.
Amazing, amazing. So tell us, what are you going to be speaking on? What can our audience expect to hear from you?
I think we all agree that the world is changing for us as coaches, as practitioners, trainers. The world's changing in a way that we haven't seen before. And the question, I guess, is who are you going to be when the history's written, I guess. There's an AI placebo out there right now. And that's pretty much what I'm going to bring to the conference so that people can understand that, hey, there's a world being created right now that you can either be a part of in multiple ways or you can fight it. And you've got to be the one to make that decision.
Awesome. So, DJ, you've spent over 35 years helping people transform behaviors, identity, emotional patterns, performances. What have you discovered is the real mechanism behind lasting human change?
After 35 years of sitting across from people in their most honest moments, the thing that I guess took me the longest to accept is that insight is not change. I mean, it feels like change. God, it feels like change. You have a breakthrough in a session, something shifts, client cries, but then 6 weeks later, they're doing the exact same thing. And I always think to myself, how do you show your dog what your goals are? Well, you can't, right? You can only show him the ball. You can only show him the lead. You can only show him the treat.
Mhm.
But try and explain a 5-year business plan. He'll just sort of look at you and head tilted, sad eyes, waiting for the ball.
Right.
your nervous system is the dog. And I guess the most important thing that I've learned about that is our job isn't to explain the goal, it's to show the dog the ball and make them run with it.
Definitely right. So, after decades of working with individuals, companies, and audiences around the world, what do you believe creates the difference between information that inspires people and experiences that actually transform them?
Honestly, I think it's not just about giving them a feeling. I think a lot of people are too busy focused on what they can do for themselves
Hmm.
and not making it, not bringing everybody on the same run on on the same team. They're too focused on their own experiences of life to change the nervous system and what the nervous system believes is possible. I mean, they're not the same thing. They're not even close. I think David Hume once said, there's no greater knowledge beyond that of experience, and that causes and effects are discoverable, not by reason, but by experience.
Right,
I think once you once you learn to give that person that real experience, it changes everything.
right. I notice what you're doing, you've combined hypnosis, storytelling, communication, sales, and live influences throughout your career. What led you to see these as connected parts of human transformation?
At the end of the day, every single one of those disciplines is doing is doing the exact same work,
Mhm.
changing what something means inside the nervous system and in real time. I mean, a great story changes what the situation means, and a great sales conversation changes what's possible. And a great induction, of course, changes what's safe for us.
Right,
So to me, the mechanism is identical. You're always working at the level of meaning, and the nervous system responds to meaning, not facts.
right.
So once I really got that in the body, not just in the head,
Hmm.
um, everything became one thing, and the work just got, for me, a lot more precise and a lot more impactful.
Right. Looking back over your career, what is the one lesson about human behavior that has become clearer and more important over time?
I think most people call their personality, what they call their personality anyway, is actually just an unpaid bill. The patterns that we carry, the way that we react to criticism and to success, to being asked to change what we're worth. Because I mean, most of those were installed before we were even old enough to choose them.
Hmm.
I was sitting with a woman once, really brilliant, experienced, great practice, really profitable, but she started going downhill. She hadn't raised her prices in 3 years. And then when I asked her why, she said, "Well, I don't want to seem pushy." So I asked her, when did pushy become dangerous? And she went really, really quiet. And then she told me this story long ago about her father. He used to say to her, every time she reached for something or she went for something bigger in her life, "Who do you think you are?"
Yeah.
Now, she was 7 years old the first time he said it to her. She's now 42. She's
Hmm.
looking out in a big office over Sydney Harbour, and she's still answering that question. And she wasn't trying to be humble or anything. She was still waiting for permission from a man who was never going to give it. That's what I call emotional debt.
Right. So your presentation explores the AI possible of human interaction. What do you mean when you say technology can create information, but not necessarily transformation?
I was in a hotel room in Chicago once, a laptop open, trying to get Siri to spell my name right. Um, and she kept ordering me an Uber XL and playing Michael Jackson on Spotify. What a thriller, eh? So I kind of gave up on Siri and I had a conversation with one of the new big AI systems. I was trying to understand it. And I asked it about empathy. And the response actually was genuinely very impressive, nuanced, warm, well referenced. And that entire time that I was reading the answer, I knew with complete certainty that it had never felt anything, not once, not even approximately. AI can remix Beethoven, but it has never felt the goosebumps at a concerto, right?
Right.
It can analyze love poems, but it's never had its heart broken by a post-it note on the kitchen fridge that just said, "It's not you, it's me." Costanza style, right? Because transformation doesn't happen through just information transfer.
Right.
It happens through contact. One nervous system in genuine relationship with another. That's connection.
So, what do you believe practitioners need to develop to remain powerful and relevant in a world full of automation and AI?
Oh, one word. Um, Presence. Not a technique that looks like presence, and not a framework for appearing present, the actual trained capacity to bring your full nervous system into contact with another human being and actually stay there. Because let's be honest, AI will replace every part of this work that is essentially information transfer, right? The psychoeducation, the explanations, the framework. In fact, AI will do all of that more consistently and probably a lot more cheaply than
Hmm.
most practitioners, especially within the next few years. But what AI cannot replace is the room, the actual lived experience of being genuinely seen by a trained human being who is fully there with you. The client's nervous system really knows the difference between real presence and perform presence. And we're seeing that now with people in live rooms and learning stuff online. It has always known, in fact, it reads it in milliseconds and not flinch and to not just fill the silence, to actually trust the process. Even when everything in the room is telling you to reach for a technique or whatever, because emotional intelligence tells you how you feel, but emotional fitness trains you for what you can do about it. That's huge.
Love it. So, what are some things you've experienced as a hypnotist or a hypnotist can learn to notice in a client that completely changes the quality of the session?
I think it's the gap between what the client says and what their body's doing. Because most practitioners are trained to listen to the words, like the story, the presenting problem. And by the way, all of that matters. But the nervous system communicates through a completely different channel, completely different channel. Um, it functions through breath, through posture, through micro expressions. The moment the voice actually changes register. In fact, when
Mhm.
a client says something like, you ask them a question and they say, I'm fine, but they're actually in conflict and their shoulders move like 3 millimeters towards the ears, actually the movement is the truth. The words are really a managed version, but the body is the program. So the practitioners who can create the deepest change have trained themselves to recognize change and they'll read both channels simultaneously. That noticing is not technique. And it goes back to what I said before, presence. And it's actually built through doing the work on yourself first.
Absolutely. So you've spoken on major stages and trained professionals internationally. What have you learned about the psychology of influence and human engagement?
I had a coffee once with a ex-bouncer, not your average nightclub type. This guy ran security in 22 countries. So we're talking Jason Bourne with like a gym membership, right? And I asked him, what's the fastest way to diffuse a violent situation? Now, personally, as someone who's been in martial arts, I was expecting like a pressure point, a tactical Kung Fu Panda style move. He leans forward and he says 5 words. How can I help you? And and I nearly choked on my latte, right? He said those 5 words either melt a good person having a bad day or they expose a true predator instantly. He said it's a psychological X-ray. And but they only work when you genuinely mean them.
Hmm.
So in other words, a performed version does nothing, right? The nervous system kind of reads it immediately. It knows what it's talking, knows the difference between real acting and reality TV, right? Real influence is a regulated nervous system that is offering genuine presence to an unregulated one.
So, DJ, for trainers and let's say speakers, how can they
Yeah,
create experiences where people don't just learn something, they become different because of it?
simple, really. Start with a story that's true, not a teaching story, not a carefully constructed illustration or even a metaphor. A true story. Something that happened in a real room with real people where something real was at stake. Because the nervous system responds to a story differently than it responds to, say, content or information,
Mhm.
right? Facts go to the cortex, but a vividly emotional real story goes into the same place where memory and identity and true meaning live. In fact, Bill Gove, the father of professional speaking, he built his whole system around this. Make a point, tell a story, hit the payoff, and in that order every time. So the room that I guess that I want to walk out of every time is is one where people are quiet, but in a specific way. Not bored quiet, processing quiet, where something landed that is still sitting inside.
Mhm.
That's when I know the nervous system was actually reached. And that's probably the most powerful.
We live in a world where personal development has become a massive online industry. Big names, big followings, big promises. But you draw a sharp distinction between emotional intelligence and emotional fitness. What is the difference, and why does it matter to the people in our community who are doing the actual work?
Emotional intelligence is what the online world sells you. And honestly, it sells really well. It gives you a language for your pain, right? It makes you feel understood. It tells you you're not fragile, that you're just triggered. And that feels like progress in your life until 2 a.m. when the trigger fires again. And everything you said you believed about yourself suddenly just disappears. Because emotional intelligence told you how to feel, but nobody trained you for what to do about it. And there is a machine running right now, a big machine. It's large, it's profitable, and it's extraordinarily well lit. Podcasts, books, courses from people who have studied human suffering from a distance. Now, look, I want to be careful with this too, I guess, because they aren't villains, right? Some of them genuinely care, yeah, about their sponsorships.
Mhm.
But caring is not a clinical skill. And to me, a beautiful framework that is delivered by someone who has never sat across from a human being who genuinely could not get out of bed without a countdown is not transformation. It's, to me, it's comfort, beautifully packaged comfort. And as I said, with very good lighting. Meanwhile, the trainers and the practitioners, the people who the ABH represent, the practitioners and trainers in this room that will be listening, of course, to this and my keynote, are sitting across from real human beings in real rooms with no algorithms deciding the outcome.
Mhm.
And most of the world has never heard of them. And not because the work isn't world class, because the work doesn't photograph well or help algorithms make money for big tech. So emotional intelligence sort of tells you how you feel for approval, but emotional fitness trains you for what you can do about it. And Harvard Business Review Press draws the same distinction. Emotional intelligence, awareness, well, it's actually mostly junk science, but emotional fitness is actually the capacity to function, especially when it matters. Not the feeling of change, but the actual thing. And look, if any of that landed and you want to explore more, you can go to Best Mindset Solutions. There's actually a True Believer starter pack there. It's free for everyone. It's free. There's three reframes that change what comparison criticism does in your own mind and what it actually means for you, and probably why you're addicted to approval. And it's no pitch of, and it's not a course or anything like that. It's just the work that we've been doing over the last 20 odd years, Jojo and I, and 35 years myself. And I hope to bring that in September, and I look forward to seeing everyone in September there at the conference.
And so I see a guitar back there. Are you singing for us in September, or what are we doing?
No, I'm not. Singing is not my forte, but a little playing can be.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, DJ. We're all excited to see you in September, and it's good to see you, mate. It's really good to see you again.
Wonderful to see you, and I look forward to catching up with you and getting beaten again in racquetball.